I have miles and miles ahead of me, tales to listen to, time to spend. Up ahead, the road is bending. Wonder what's around the bend.
Hello, I'm Charles Kuralt. We're off again to meet a few people on the backroads of America. These are people you know, not from the front pages. They've never been on the front pages. They're people you know from next door and down the block. Their stories are some of my favorites from 25 years on the road. When you travel the byways of America, you keep running into the past. In Middlebury, Connecticut, we'll go for a sleigh ride, laughing all the way. In Booneville, California, we'll hear a peculiar language of the past still being spoken today, at least around brightlighters like you and me. It looks like a good apple crop this year.
Gano crop good and plenty eggs.
That's Boontling. But English, of course, is the language of most of this country. Though it might have been Spanish, very nearly might have been, as a walk on the Mission Trail will remind us. And here is a sign of another time. In Quincy, Massachusetts, we will hear the sizzle, crash, and ping of the past. San Francisco's our first stop, though, to meet Larry Lewis, a man of the past. Don't run into this man of the past, however. He'll knock you down. Pick out the fastest moving man on Powell Street, and that will be Larry Lewis. He walks fast almost every day from his home 3.5 miles away to his job at the St. Francis Hotel. He changes clothes fast and then goes to work as a banquet waiter. Banquet waiters have to be fast, and Larry Lewis is one of the fastest.
I won't give you nothing to eat.
He has lived his whole life at this pace as a magician, marathon runner, and member of a high-wire act, pal of P.T. Barnum and Harry Houdini, and now as the fastest man with a plate of roast beef anywhere west of Denver. Larry Lewis has never slowed down. You are probably not going to believe this, but he is 104 years old and still running. He runs, literally, every morning in Golden Gate Park, sometimes as far as 7 miles before he walks fast to work. We checked his age with the Social Security people, and they said, yep, 104 is about right. And they added, by the way, you'll have to run to keep up with him. You do this every day, do you?
That's right.
Don't you think that maybe when you're 104 years old, you ought to slow down a little bit?
That's not necessary. You want to keep in condition, you got to do it.
How long have you been at this?
96 years.
Running? Every day?
That's right.
Well, I'll tell you the truth.
Yes.
I'm a little too old for this. Why don't we sit down here for a minute?
What do you mean you're too old? You're never too old. All you got to do is have a lot of gumption and guts and keep on doing it. Because once you stop doing it, that's when you're really going to become old.
But you don't really have to work your head off when...
I don't. My head still stays in the same place. Don't never move.
Well, why do you have to keep working, for example? Most fellows your age would be satisfied to sit on a beach somewhere.
Well, that was the people's when you show me one to 65 and over that's doing that thing, I show you somebody's going to meet his maker at a hell of a long, faster time than he thinks.
Yeah?
If you stop being active in any way, shape, form, or manner, you're detrimental to yourself.
Well, you've had quite a life.
I know that. Now, Charlie, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
You've run a little bit with me. You've been sitting here for quite a while. Have you caught your breath enough to learn a little bit more?
I suppose so.
Let's see if you're in good condition. Let's get started here. No need of you sitting around waiting here.
Okay.
set the pace.
It is not often that a 37-year-old man gets a chance to be outrun by a gentleman 67 years his senior, but life, we find, is full of new experiences.
Pretty fast pace you set.
Fade out. Fade out.
I'm gonna have to.
Fade out.
And there goes a new experience now in a red sweatsuit. Larry Lewis, 104 going on 105, and not even breathing hard.
On a quiet back street of Quincy, Massachusetts, there's a sign that identifies the Avidus Zildjian Company as cymbal makers since 1623. It's the kind of sign that makes you do a double take. Since when? And that is how we happen to be present today in what is surely one of the oldest and loudest companies in America, the Avidus Zildjian Company, the country's only manufacturer of cymbals. Your first impression is that everybody in this place is mad. But no, it turns out that cymbals have to be tested, and the only way to test a cymbal is to haul off and hit it. So that's what they do all day long. We found a relatively quiet corner and asked Armand Zildjian to try to explain. What are they doing with all this constant banging and crashing around here?
They're selecting the proper cymbal for the orders. In other words, we have many types of cymbals. We have ride cymbals, bounce cymbals, played with the tip of the stick. We have cymbals for crash ride cymbals, bebop ride cymbal, swish cymbals, ping cymbals, sizzle cymbals. And
Swish, pang, and sizzle?
right.
Armand Zildjian is the inheritor of a secret of metallurgy that was discovered by the original Armenian Avidus Zildjian in Constantinople in 1623. The secret has been handed down to the eldest male sons of the family ever since. Whatever the secret is, it permits this company to make 90% of the world's cymbals. Hardly anybody wants any other kind. What they'll show you here are the discs of metal being heated in an oven like so many pizzas, and rolled, and cut, and hammered, and tooled on a lathe. And thus, with much banging and clanging, what once was Malayan tin and Michigan copper and Colorado silver becomes an instrument worthy of the Boston Symphony or Buddy Rich. That's what they'll show you. What they won't show you goes on behind a battered door marked "No Admittance." There, every day, Armand Zildjian, or his brother Robert, goes alone to mix the secret formula. It is the formula brought to America in 1929 by the present-day Avidus Zildjian. At 80, he is still the patriarch and the boss. And when he gets interviewed, they even stop testing cymbals. How many cymbals do you suppose you have around here?
Oh, there are about 100,000 pairs.
Good heavens.
Yeah,
That's an awful lot of cymbals.
yeah.
Is one cymbal pretty much like another?
No, they all vary. There are 200,000 different tones.
Well, that's the world of bops, crashes, swishes, sizzles, and hi-hats. We've enjoyed it here, but if you don't mind, we're thinking of doing our next story in a library reading room, or a monastery, or on a nice, quiet artillery range. Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Well, it turns out to be true. You can't go for a sleigh ride without laughing, and least of all if you're Carol Matthews, who loves it so. Carol Matthews first hitched a horse to a sleigh when he was 5 years old, and he's never missed a winter since, which adds up to 60 winters, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtail ring, making spirits bright. It's all true. Carroll Matthews, with reins in his hand, must be the brightest spirit in New England.
Steady, steady. Right there. This is the way they used to do it in the old days. Cover ground and enjoy it every foot of the way. Bells ringing and head up. Good girl. Easy does it now. Easy does it on your turn. Easy does it. Now go. Right there. That's the way it was done.
I notice you take the curves kind of slow.
A sleigh tips over very easily. If it's slewing just a little bit and it strikes something solid, a sleigh will flip right over just like as though it were an eggshell. Nothing to it. In fact, this sleigh that you're in has been tipped over.
Oh, it has it?
Right. Go, babe.
Babe is a beautiful Morgan mare named Broadwall Daphne. The sleigh is an 1890 Acorn Cutter, a gentleman's courting sleigh which Carroll Matthews found covered with dust and chicken wire in the hayloft of an old barn. If you come along with the three of them, Broadwall Daphne and Carroll Matthews and the Acorn Cutter, over the snowy hills of Middlebury, Connecticut, you find that you can't help laughing a little yourself.
Well, this is the way to see the winter woods.
You bet it is. Hang on.
Carroll Matthews is almost, but not quite, one of a kind. There are several people left, almost all of them in Connecticut and Massachusetts, to whom dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh is more than a song. The sleighs have been found and restored or handed down in the family, and on winter weekends in the snow-covered meadows of places like Hampton, Massachusetts, you find yourself looking over your shoulder for Mr. Courier and Mr. Ives to capture the moment. Carroll Matthews is always there, often with his daughter Sally by his side, and because he can't help it, always laughing.
In the number one spot, ladies and gentlemen, we have none other than number 39. Carroll Matthews, Middlebury, Connecticut. Well, Carroll, isn't that a handsome rig, ladies and gentlemen?
Jingle bells have survived into the snowmobile age because a few people are left who know their secret. Bells on bobtail ringing really do make spirits bright. The next day, when we dropped in to say goodbye to Carroll Matthews, we found him out sleighing with his family, laughing all the way. The bell that rang in Philadelphia couldn't be heard out here. In California, they had no way of knowing that across the continent, a country was being started. Besides, they were too busy ringing these bells, starting a country. This is Mission San Juan Capistrano, founded in 1776. These old walls and crumbling arches represent a dream that failed, a Spanish dream of an empire in North America. The Spanish knew about California during all those years when the English on the opposite coast of the continent were building cities and making roads and farming the river valleys. They claimed California, but they saw no value in it. The Spanish didn't get around to building these missions until the end of their 2.5 centuries of domination of the world, and by then it was too late. The first of the missions was not yet 40 years old when the Americans swept across the Mississippi, headed west. The first of the missions was not yet 80 when the Americans took California. That Philadelphia bell finally rang loudest. And these buildings, constructed so painfully, so magnificently in a wilderness, quickly became only relics of a failed colonial past. But that is all history, dry as dust. Come into the present. Queenly Santa Barbara, the choir at Sunday morning Mass still sings Santa Maria, Madre de Dios, exactly as that hymn was sung by neophytes when the mission was young. A boy late for church school still runs across the old stones at Carmel, as boys must have done 200 years ago. People still take their lunch at the Mission San Luis Obispo, which is still at the center of the community. And even the Royal Road, which the Spanish built to connect the 21 missions, is still in use. El Camino Real has become, in the modern shorthand, Highway 101. If you travel the Royal Road, you can still stop to rest at the missions. They are best visited in silence. So I think I'll be silent for a minute and leave you to the gardens and cloisters of a California that was not to be. As you visit, give a thought to a great priest, Father Junipero Serra, who came here carrying only a cross and did all this for God and for Spain. Think of the effort, the intention, and the broken dream. Just one more thing. If you doubt that these first buildings of Spanish California could have led in any way to the California we know, say some of the mission's names in Spanish. San Gabriel, San Jose, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, San Fernando, San Rafael, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, San Diego, San Francisco. We heard there was a lost valley in the California hill country, a remote place where nearly 100 years ago the loggers and sheep ranchers made up a language of their own, partly just for fun, partly to confuse strangers. They still talk Boontling in Booneville, we were told. You can't understand them. So we came to Booneville, and we couldn't understand them.
Hello?
Good morning.
Nice day.
Oh, it looks kind of purified, don't it?
It's a good hamburger.
Thank you. We got pretty bog arms and good hot Z's, too. And not only that, but this place won't dehig you.
It looks like a good apple crop this year.
Gano crop good and plenty higs. Many kimmies and bald dames come a long ways by Ganos and Johnny Pete.
Even the local highway patrolman has learned to speak Boontling. He says he has to get along in the valley.
Did some posy tweed string soccer up there?
Arctis Mosh.
Yeah. String it bad?
Yeah, strung it.
As we drove around the valley, we learned that Zeese means coffee because an old-timer named Z.C. used to make his coffee so strong. A Jeffer is a fire because innkeeper Jeff Vestal used to like big fires. And Booner Jack June provided some further translations.
Well, like a doctor is a shovel tooth.
A shovel tooth?
Yes, a shovel tooth. That was a doctor that had protruding front teeth. If you pike the shovel tooth, well, that's going to the doctor.
Why do people go to so much trouble to speak a separate language in this valley to begin with?
Well, I think you should go back and realize we were in a pretty remote area. If a bright lighter come in, you want to harp a little nonchalance on him, you know.
A stranger from the city.
Right. If he come in, it was just nice to be able to talk around him a little bit, you know. And
well, you can still talk around bright lighters today.
Oh yeah, we can string them.
We wondered if the youngsters of the valley were picking up the language from the old Kajis, and I guess they are, because when we asked a wee Tweed if he knew Tom Tom the Piper's son, this is what he answered.
Cirk, the tutor's tweed, strong a borp and shied. They gorm the borp and dreet we cirk, and a pike plenty green-eyed.
So Boontling survives. It may not always, but it does for now. And as they say in Boont, a Dom in the Dukes is baller than Dubs in the Sham. This is the Tel Vief, Kimmy, pikin' through Boont. Well, time to say goodbye until our next trip together. We've heard about a story up the road here, but we kind of hope we never get there. With luck, we'll stumble upon something more interesting along the way. I can see the road is bending. Wonder what's around the bend.
All these years I've been a-wondering, just when I think I'm near the end, I always see the road is bending, and I wonder what's around